Now, Indian Prime Minister Modi is taking part in the second India-Nordic summit hosted by Denmark. Like we mentioned, he will interact with the Prime Ministers of the Nordic Five. The first India-Nordic summit was back in 2018 in Stockholm. Now, this year's summit focuses on issues of common interest like post-pandemic economic recovery, climate change, the India-Nordic cooperation in the Arctic, and our principal diplomatic correspondent spoke to the Prime Minister of Norway on what this second edition of the summit means for India-Nordic ties. Listen into this exclusive conversation.
With me is the Prime Minister of Norway. So welcome to WION. My first question to you is, what were the key issues discussed when you sat with the Indian Prime Minister here at the Prime Minister's office of Denmark?
We took note of our bilateral relations, which are really in a very strong push now. We are countries of different experience, but we share large continental shelves, oceans around our countries. So the blue economy is an area where we already cooperate. We want to take that forward. And our discussions focused a lot on energy. How do we provide enough renewable energy for India to make its economy develop, take people into development, out of poverty? For that we need energy, and we need renewable energy for climate reasons. And I take that Prime Minister Modi is a strong champion for creating more energy, but at the same time renewable energy that can be good also for the climate and for the environment. So hydrogen, ocean wind, river management, in addition to everything we do on ocean management and shipping, were key issues.
So both India and Norway are non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. How both countries can collaborate on many issues, but also on the UNSC reform, something that India is very keen for?
We support a process of reform of having a more representative Security Council. It has been a long process, and while that is ongoing, we have to make the best out of the Security Council that we have. And right now that Security Council is in a deep, I would say, trouble because of the war in Ukraine, which is, one of the permanent members of the Security Council is waging war on a neighboring country at devastating effect in Ukraine. So that has to be discussed, and all the small and larger issues in the Security Council, we have worked closely with India. And my team, my diplomats, report to me that they have a good and very constructive cooperation with India.
So what's your government's view about the crisis in Europe? That's the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
It's a blatant breach on international law. There can be differences between countries, there can be disputes, but they have to be solved politically, not by full-scale invasion, killing, destruction, driving millions of people fleeing. So this has to stop, and there has to be a process of political negotiations and talks coming soon.
So what do you think about the membership, NATO membership of your neighboring countries like Finland and Sweden? Will you support that?
Well, first of all, it is their choice to make. They should not be pushed in or kept out. They have to make that choice. They are already very close partners of NATO. Norway's very close neighbors. So where they two decide to apply, we would support it, and we would welcome them in NATO.
But how can this war be stopped, sir? My final question to you is the war in Ukraine.
Well, there has to be a common will of a ceasefire, and there has to be sitting around a table addressing the issue by issue. And then that has to be done between the two parties, but then also countries around in Europe, but also India and other countries should support such a process were it to happen. And
so what's such a process like?
Well, it has to be a negotiated way out of the conflict. All conflicts at one day ends around the table, and that day should come sooner rather than later, because as it goes on now, the destruction, the killing and the suffering just continues.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.